Reverend Betty Tatalajski told me what she was going to talk about, and I thought, whoops, I'm going to have to frame this so people can deal with this.
Really?
Because even this story, is so outrageous, it even blew her mind.
Yes.
And so she rarely talks about it. I was with her when it was sort of, because it happened over around a week. Till you got the message, you saw it.
You heard the story the next day.
The next day. But it took for around a week for it to settle in with her.
Yes.
And she told me
absolutely.
she's going to tell about this story today on the program. Here we go, folks. Reverend Betty Tatalajski, former Marine, former Southern Baptist, former Catholic, and now minister, founder of the Temple of Universality.
Hello, friends. Namaste. The God in me greets the God in you. And yes, that's just about what happened. But I want to talk about some red lights. Now, when we think of red lights, it's like I'm going to pay a fine because I ran.
2 days ago, I was there.
Okay, well, a month ago I was there. It was $325.
Same ticket.
And you know what, honey? I know I didn't run no red light if I were conscious, okay?
Okay.
So anyway,
All right.
but I'm going to talk about red lights. And March the 23rd, 2013. So you can see here that I was reluctant to talk about this, what happened to me.
This is 2 years later.
Yeah. After 2 years, because I told my friends the next day, actually, and well, it wasn't a matter of belief or disbelief. They know that I don't lie, but it was incomprehensible.
Betty, what happened to you? Now, I want to tell you, things happen to this lady that don't happen to the rest of us, all right? And if they do, certainly not in the same measure, all right? The Ascended Masters have talked to her. She has been led. Her life is a story of remarkable ideas. When this happened to Betty, she was worried about the screws in her head.
Absolutely.
And I could tell it. It affected her. And this is a person where this kind of stuff is not normal, but it happens.
All the
Yes.
all the time. And so this is almost the 100th show we've done.
Yeah.
And they've always been experiences that I have around the world. But this was right here in Tucson at the end of my, at the driveway of where my car was parked. At 5:55 that Wednesday morning, my phone rang and there was a message on it. Well, first of all, friends, my message machine had been broken for 2 months and nobody had fixed it. So I went in there and there was someone on the phone. There was my neighbor on the phone telling me, Betty, do you know what those red lights are about outside? Well, I put my bathrobe on, I was barefooted, I went out and I looked for John and I looked for red lights.
Now, this is the afternoon, isn't it, Betty?
It was morning.
Oh, morning, 5 in the morning. Okay.
5 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
So I didn't find John. I knocked on his door. It was pitch dark out there.
Okay.
It was March. It was cold. And there were no red lights. Okay. And he knew also, when I approached him later, he says, I knew your phone message machines hasn't worked for 2 months.
Yeah.
But here's a message from him. What are the lights? And my machine, after that message, didn't work anymore, but it worked during those few minutes. So I go outside and I'm looking for John and I'm looking for red lights. There's nothing. It's pitch dark out there and it's cold and I'm barefoot.
Yeah, back in the house.
I just walk out to my car because I thought, you know, if
maybe it's you can't see it from where you are.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And he thought later, he told me that the police were there and an ambulance was there and there was the red lights out in the driveway, okay?
Okay, later.
But they weren't.
They weren't there.
No.
No. Folks, I know what her looks like. Betty's, the distance from her apartment to the parking lot is probably around 200 feet, 250 feet. All right.
Yes.
So you couldn't see any red lights. It was dark. And you decided, well, maybe I'll go out into the parking lot and look around to see these lights.
I did.
All right.
And they were not there.
You couldn't see.
But I looked up.
Yeah.
And I'm right across the street from the St. Mary's Hospital.
Yeah, big hospital right
And
across the
this
street. Yeah.
was the parking lot. They built the parking lot
Yeah.
last year, and I could see over the parking lot, and there were these 3 huge lights. They were larger than any full moon I have ever seen.
Okay.
And they were bright lights.
Okay.
They were not shining.
Okay.
They were just red lights. Okay.
Okay.
And I thought, what is the hospital doing? What is this?
I just thought of something to say to our folks out here. In case you don't believe this story is being told by a person who did not see the red lights that the police said were on when she went through the stop sign.
So there they were, and I thought, what have they done over the parking lot
Of the
of
hospital.
the hospital?
Yeah. Why are those lights up there?
Why are they up there?
Yeah.
Now, if you go by there at night, you will see red lights in the parking lot and all on poles. Okay,
But these were huge.
These were huge.
Okay.
Like this, and they were up over the parking lot.
Okay.
Well, I was dumbfounded, of course, but I look over the hospital, which is higher, and there are 3 over the hospital. I look down to my right, and there are 3 over what would be Safeway grocery store
okay.
across the street.
9 red lights now.
So we've got 9.
9, okay.
I look behind me, and there are 3 over to my
12.
house. So I knew that I had lost my mind.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I just stood there, and I'm wondering, people are going early to work.
They're going to see. What are they going to do?
Okay, they're going to have an accident,
Yeah.
trying to figure out the lights.
Yeah.
Nothing. Nobody stopped, okay? So I go in, after a while, I am so dumbfounded. I go back in the house, and I says, I'm not awake. So, okay, so I'm waking myself up.
Yeah.
And I go back out, and they're still there.
Okay.
This happened 3 times within that 30 minutes, okay? Finally, I look at my house, and I say, okay, there's not any over my house. I could see them, but this is not possible.
Yeah.
So here I am, and I stood out there and watched them for at least another 30 minutes, and I am feeling like, well, I have lost my mind.
Yeah.
Because if they were truly there, cars would be stopping.
It'd be like the Orson Welles movie.
Absolutely.
Where everybody's pointing and talking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it never happened.
Okay.
So I went in finally, and I thought, what has happened to my mind, And so...
I know, Betty, because when you told us the next day, I could tell you were worried about yourself.
Oh, I was worried about
You worried about yourself.
So it was, the next night was our Holy Grail circle.
Yeah, that's when we talked to you.
And
yeah.
Spirit says, tell the people. Well, I did. Well, there was
we
not...
were there.
There
She was nervous.
Sound.
Yeah.
There was not a sound in that circle, okay? Nobody was given a purpose for it, a reason for it,
no.
or any confirmation that I hadn't lost my mind.
Or say, I saw those two. No one said that. No one said they were coming back and they wondered what they were. Nobody said anything.
No conjecture,
nothing.
Maybe it's this and maybe that.
Yeah.
It was like zip. Lips.
Yeah.
Let her hang out there by herself,
Yeah.
okay? She saw him. We don't believe it.
Yeah.
So,
but
anyway.
Yeah.
So that's how I felt on Thursday night.
We could feel it, Betty.
So the next day, as I had been doing for several years, I went to David Miller's United Fellowship Church for the meditation and for the healing, okay? So I asked Daryl and Martha if they could go to lunch with me.
That's what you told
So
us.
we go to lunch.
Yes.
And I told them what happened. Well, since it didn't happen to them, they said, well, tonight is our trance circle, what you would call a seance, by one of the best mediums in the country, who is Reverend Chris Fassetti. And she does this every other Friday night. And so they say to me,
you can find out.
Why don't you
Ask.
Well, it wasn't them that was going to be crucified and hung out there, And So you can imagine that I had heartburn over
Yeah.
this, okay? Have I lost my mind,
Yes.
or does it have any credibility?
Yes.
So they, well, just ask.
Yeah.
I said, well, why don't you ask? Well, it happened to you, you said,
that's right.
okay? So I go, and I thought, I didn't
You know, some of the
know-
conversations they have at this little village inn where we're eating
Yeah.
are just not usual.
And so I thought, if I could just get up the nerve to do it. And Spirit has always tells me, now remember, Betty, you are responsible to the exact degree of your awareness, okay? And that's how I've been living
Sure.
all of these many years, okay? And that's why some of these shows seem rather audacious,
Audacious,
you know?
yeah.
So, okay, I'm just trying to get up nerve. And I am the first person in that circle, because I sit by Reverend Christine Fassetti as a protector, and so that nobody touches her. So she goes into, well, Betty never asked any, you know, and I said, I do have a question.
This time, yeah.
This time I have a question. I want to know, and Lord Sananda, one of the Ashtar commanders, comes in right away with a couple of other Ashtar commanders, and they were laughing. They were laughing. And I said, well, I just want to know if what happened to me yesterday morning with those red lights, was that real?
Was it real?
Was it real? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, yes, Betty, it was real. Now, I have never heard Lord Sananda and those Ashtar commanders laugh. But they were laughing at me, laughing with me.
With you, yeah, at what had happened.
And it was like, we wondered if you were going to ask.
Yeah.
You know, because that dictum that you have, you are responsible to the exact degree of your awareness, and what they mean is, tell it as it is, okay? So I said, well, I just wanted to know about those red lights I saw yesterday morning. Was that real? Oh, yes, it was very real. I said, well, there were either 9 or 12. I couldn't believe, after I've looked around here, that there's 3 over to my house, and I thought, no, I've slipped you know, here.
The first 3 was bad enough.
Yeah, the first 9 were bad enough. Now I'm seeing them
more
over my house.
And glaucoma did not explain it.
No. And so I was ready to give up the 3 over my house.
Over that,
you know.
yeah.
This is not possible. So they said, oh, yes, there were 12 of them. There were 12 of them, remember that?
Yeah.
And I said, well, what is it? What was it? Or something like that. And they said, oh, well, those are portals for the Ashtar Command. And they said, we have 20,000 around the planet. Remember that?
Yeah.
We have 20,000 portals around the planet. Now, if you think that perhaps this is not a healthy thing that you're hearing, I can assure you, friends, it is. Because that Ashtar Command is made up of the greatest souls, spirit, people on this planet. And to have 20,000 portals around this planet, we are in very good hands, okay? Because I will tell you that there are many worlds. There are more worlds than you can imagine. And they are all different frequencies. It's just like here on the earth plane. There are some people who are saints, and there are people who are less than that, or actively acting like that, who seem to be totally ignorant, and many seem to be totally unkind and mean. So we know there are different levels of consciousness.
And they all live in different worlds, their own.
And we do.
Yeah, the world of a saint is very different than the world of a troubled person.
Yes. And we know that there are prisons, and there are mental hospitals, and there are all of this. And the diversity. But a lot of people don't know about the incredible spiritual world that is available. We hear all the time, as a man thinks in his heart, it is. So that's what creates your heaven and your hell. We create it ourselves by worry and by unkind thoughts. And then when we're in the hell that we have created, we forget and we blame it on other folks of the condition that we are in. But we create our own heaven and hell by our belief system. So it is actually time for us to understand that the world is not truly the way that we perceive it or the conditions that we put on it. But it would be wise if you understood, when you look at the sky, those stars, I will tell you, are live beings, okay? And this shooting star, who is Lord Sananda, under the direction of Sanat Kumara, who is called in the Bible the Lord of the world, called the Ancient of Days. Now, if you would like to call me and get the verse out of the Bible, you don't have to. I can tell you in Book of Daniel, in chapter 8, the Ancient of Days, the Lord of the world, is mentioned 3 times, okay? So this Lord of the world, Sanat Kumara, is very real. And when I ask them, why didn't other people see it when they were so very obvious?
To you.
They said, because we raised your vibratory level.
So you could see
so
it.
that you could see what other people
Couldn't see.
Okay? Does that make sense to you?
Betty, that is a more extreme and metaphysical example of the phenomena. Is that dress blue and black, or is it white and gold?